This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. You got it here. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Or let it shine all the time, I would say. All right. I know many of us are familiar with this song. Even those who have no familiarity with Christianity are aware of the song. You hear it in movies and commercials and all over the place. I even found Bruce Springsteen does a rousing cover of the song. At the end of the service, I'll put it on. You guys can listen to it. It's pretty interesting. But the song isn't just this verse. There's other verses like hide it under a bushel. Right? No, I'm going to let it shine. Hide it under a bushel. No, I'm going to let it shine. Hide it under a bushel. No, I'm going to let it shine. Let it shine all the time. And of course, everyone's kid's favorite, don't let Satan. I'm going to let it shine. Don't let Satan it out. I'm going to let it shine. Don't let Satan it out. I'm going to let it shine. Let it shine all the time. All right. Now, there are other verses, people say, shine it all over, and you insert location here, right? Or, Buxton, or Hollis, or wherever. Or, let it shine till Jesus comes. And the song really resonates with people. People love to hear, probably because a lot of times we probably feel small, insignificant in the course of world events. Who are we? What can little old me do? We're no one special, but the song reminds us that each of us, you and me, have a little light. A little light that can shine, that can bring joy and happiness into our world and expel the pain and gloom of our world. For several weeks, we've been exploring the Beatitudes, and we talked last week about being the salt of the earth, the good, hardworking, honest people who are commissioned to flavor and preserve our world with the gospel, fertilizing and melting the ice that keep people from Jesus. And I heard a few good comments from people last week, how much they really liked the sermon, probably because I fed them at the beginning, right? Everyone's like, oh, I love that pretzel. That's the only thing they can remember, really. That's the only thing I can remember. And I thought, well, maybe I should give you something to eat today. Right? But I was like, well, it's light. Well, that'd have to be like diet food. I don't think any of us really want diet food. Well, maybe after Thanksgiving we need a little bit. But, decided not to. I mean, you gotta pay the bills, people. Come on. But we're going on. So last week was, you are the salt of the earth. And then Jesus goes to next, right after that, you are the light of the world. So what does this mean? Why does Jesus goes from salt to light? What does this mean? Is there any way that these two relate? John Stott says this. He says that the effects of salt and light are complementary. The function of salt is largely negative, and it prevents decay, while the function of light is positive, and it illuminates the darkness. For the one thing, to stop the spread of evil, and for the other, to promote the spread of truth, that beauty and goodness. And Jesus calls us as his followers and to do both. So as followers of Jesus, we have this complementary function, right? That we are to help prevent decay, and we're supposed to expel the darkness. So we have to have some sort of balance then as the people of God of being salt and light. This is that delicate balance of truth and grace, helping reveal the sin that's destroying our world while showing the love and grace of God. And it can be hard to do, right? Because it's really this delicate balance of too much salt and not enough light, or too much light and not enough salt, and we begin to miss the beautiful, delicate nature of the gospel. And so somehow we're supposed to both be preserving this world, but also expelling the darkness. And so Jesus tells us, those who join him on the mountain, and all who have ears to hear. He says that you are the light of the world. And I know we've all been in darkness before, whether that's literal or figurative. We've been in pitch black times, and when you're in darkness and you light a candle, or you turn on a flashlight, or you pull out your phone, and all of a sudden light begins to fill the room. And light then does two things, and we're going to kind of expound on this, that light expels the darkness and it reveals the way. Right? Jesus calls us as his faithful followers to do these things, to be this light shining in the darkness, to help expel the darkness in our world, and also to reveal the way to God. So he declares that you are the light of the world. You are to be shining bright. We find it interesting, in the Gospel of John, Jesus, in fact, calls himself the light of the world. He says, I am the light of the world. This is one of these images that John loves. You see it throughout his Gospel and in his letters and in the book of Revelation. You see this idea of Jesus embracing this imagery of light. Jesus continually refers to himself as the light of the world. And as we enter Advent season next week, we're going to explore some of these ideas of Jesus declaring himself the light. Like in John 12, Jesus says, he is the light of hope. I have come as a light into the world so that everyone who believes in me will not remain in darkness. So there's a hope for our dark world, for those who believe in him, that the light has come. And then Jesus says he is the light of peace. As he talks with Nicodemus, he says that the light has come into the world, and people love darkness rather than light. But anyone who lives by the truth comes into the light. And that there's a way to experience the peace of God by coming into his light. Then he says that he is the light of joy, that anyone who follows me will never walk in darkness. We think about the joy of that, not walking in darkness, but will have the light of life. There's a cause for joy. There's a reason to celebrate. You no longer have to walk in darkness. There's a bright light shining for us. And then Jesus tells us he is the light of love, the true light that gives light to everyone who's coming into the world. And on Christmas Eve, we celebrate that the light has come, that love has come. The bright light pierces the darkness and will not overcome it. When I was a freshman in college, I took my favorite class. It was my first semester in college. I took Astronomy 101. I always loved astronomy. I always loved looking at the stars. And I loved it so much, I went and took Astronomy 102. I became a lab assistant in our small astronomy department. I thought about studying it further, but the math just killed me. I love learning about it, but the math is just crazy. And in that class, though, our professor, Dr. David Bradstreet, taught us all about the history of the human understanding of the universe. We learned how we first believed that the Earth was the center of the universe. But thanks to scientists like Copernicus and Galileo and Brahe and others, we discovered that Earth is not the center of our solar system. In fact, the planets revolve around the sun, and the sun is not the center of our galaxy. And our galaxy, the Milky Way, is not the center of the universe. And so no matter how hard we try, we have to understand that the universe does not revolve around us. But there's one thing I learned about as we study the heavenly bodies, and maybe this is something you might be familiar with too, see, this is the moon, the beautiful moon. And the moon does not produce its own light. We think maybe now, that's kind of obvious, right? But that had to be something that they had to discover. You know, we see this heavenly body in the air and it's in the sky and it's glowing. We have to think, well, what's going on there? How's this light coming? So, so when the moon hits your eye, like a big pizza pie, it's not a moray. It's the light reflecting off of the sun, or off of the moon, from the sun onto the moon into us. So the light from the sun comes and it hits the moon and it shines, and that's what we see. So Jesus, he's saying that you are the light of the world. Then he says, I am the light of the world, like the moon, reflecting the light of the sun. We, as his followers, are to be reflecting the light of the Son of God, the true light that gives light to the world. And so this little light of mine that I'm going to let shine is not emanating from me. I'm not the one creating this light. I'm simply reflecting the light from the sun. The light of Christ is bouncing off of me and shining into the world. William Barclay says that we must shine with the reflection of his light. The radiance which shines from the Christian comes from the presence of Christ within the Christian's heart. We shine the reflection of his light. So Jesus tells us, you are the light of the world. And he gives us two ways or examples to help us understand how we are to reveal his way and to expel the darkness. He says that you are the light of the world, a city on a hill, a city glowing in the distance. You see, a city on a hill is what lights the way, or leads the way. It's a beacon for a weary traveler. Now, car travel has probably changed our understanding of this, but imagine, think about yourself back in Jesus' time, having to travel from one place to another. You're traveling by animal or cart or walking, and think of the dangers you would face. Thieves and robbers, wild animals, bad weather. As you're journeying from one place to another, you see a light on a hill, a city, and that brings you comfort. It knows that it's revealing the way, leading you to someplace safe and secure. And so as followers of Jesus who are reflecting the light of the sun, Jesus has commissioned us to be these cities on a hill, guiding people who are walking in darkness, revealing the way, the truth, and the life. Jesus uses another example. He says, you are the light of the world, a lamp on a lampstand, a light that gives light for all who are in the house. That you have been placed in our world, in your world, in this world, in your home, with your family, at your work, amongst your friends. You've been placed there to fill the room with the light of Christ, to spread his light into the dark crevices of our world. As followers of Jesus, reflecting his light, Jesus has commissioned us to be lamps on a stand, living in ways that push the darkness that fills our lives and corrupts our world. Jesus calls us to share this good news that the light, the true light, has come. That we don't need to walk in darkness. We don't have to let our sin and our shame have that final word in our lives. That we can reflect God's grace in our world. But then Jesus says something interesting in this. He says that no one lights a lamp and puts it under a basket. Now, I don't know if he's using clever wordplay or if they didn't have lampshades back then. Because I guess I was thinking about it, and of course, if you had candlelight or a little oil lamp, probably putting a shade over it or bushel over it would not be very wise. Probably catch on fire and burn your whole house down. And if you only had like candlelight, you probably wouldn't want to dim that. Your home's already dim enough. You probably want that light to stand. So you'd want to put it on as tall of a lampshade so that the light would emanate into your house and expel that darkness. But here we are, 2,000 years later. We have incandescent lights, fluorescent lights, LEDs, halogens. We have night lights, overhead lights, reading lamps. We use dimmers. We use lampshades to soften the light. We use spotlights and track lighting to aim light where we want it to go. So we can carefully, with great precision, aim the light where we want it to be. We can control how bright or how dim the light shines. So maybe we've found more and more clever ways of hiding the light of Christ. Instead of shining bright, we find ways to direct that light and control how bright and to whom it shines. As I was studying, I was reading for the sermon, I found this quote by William Barclay who says that Jesus didn't say, "You are the light of the church," suggesting that we often only let our light shine when we're at church or church-related events or with other Christians. Maybe when we're gathered to sing songs and study His Word and pray together, we're shining His light. Or maybe when we go out on a mission or we go out somewhere as a group of Christians. But when we walk out those doors, maybe we put our lampshades on. We cover up that light of Christ. We hide it under a bushel. Yes. We're going to let it hide. We hide it at the grocery store. We hide it at the office. We hide it with family members and friends. We hide it when we're voting. We hide it when we're driving. We hide it when we're shopping. Probably yesterday or Friday, probably a lot of you hid it when they were shopping. But I guess it was last week or so, I went to the new Costco. Everyone been there? It was a madhouse. And I was just picking up one thing, trying to get one thing there. And there were some complications because I was trying to show a tax-exempt status because I was getting something for the church. And starting to get, there was kind of, I have to go do this. And we run off with the car. And I started trying to get impatient. I had to remind myself, I'm doing this for the church. I had to tell them with Larnell's Community Church. So I had to remember to stay calm. To not get impatient. Shine that light. Sometimes it's easier to hide the light, isn't it? Easier to cover our faith because we don't want the responsibility. We want to stay hidden because sometimes it feels safer, much less work than living for Jesus. We hide our light, we cover it under a lampshade because we don't feel like expelling the darkness or revealing the way. We're afraid that people might reject us or have things to say about us that we just don't want them to say. We also want to have a good time. And we think that following Jesus and shining His light might not be as fun. Jesus said, "You are the light of the world. You are there reflecting my light for all to see. So let your light shine before others, so they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven." We are to reveal the way by showing our good works and expel the darkness by giving glory to our Father in heaven. Good works. Here we go again, right? Sometimes we feel like it's all we hear. Good works, good works, good works. Do. Do good works. Help this person. Care for that person. Do more. Work harder. Do even more. Work even harder. Talk to that person. Be nice to those people. Give to this organization. Go on that mission trip. Be a part of this committee. attend these services. And even though we feel like Jesus saves, we're saved by grace, it's still like we're trying to earn God's favor. And while doing good works can be a way to show His light, often it becomes another way to hide our light under a basket. Because we get caught up in doing good, we start thinking we're earning God's favor, and then we start showing off to others. And doing good things then becomes bringing attention to ourselves and how good we are. I don't think these are the good works that Jesus is referring to. It's not a quantifiable thing that we record on a fact sheet. Ooh, Dave said 10 kind words and picked up some litter. Or Judy attended small group. Valerie played nice and well this morning. These good works that Jesus is really referring to is how He changed our hearts and lives. It's not about doing more, but it's about being transformed. As Romans would tell us, we're being transformed by the renewing of our mind, by allowing God's amazing love and grace to shine in our lives and to reflect off of us into our world. The good works of God are expressed through the attitude lives of being poor in spirit and mourning and being meek and hungering for righteousness and being merciful and pure in heart and peacemakers and being persecuted for doing right. Jesus is inviting us to shine God's good work in our lives to people, to reveal the way to Him. By allowing God's light to reflect on us and not hide under a bushel, but revealing for the world to see that Jesus is in our lives. And through doing that, it begins to show people who God is, and they can give glory and praise to Him. It reveals the way and expels the darkness of our world, that the light of the world to shine. We can give glory to God because Jesus said, "You and I are the light of the world." We are reflecting the light of Christ so that people all around us are not to walk in darkness. They're not to hide it, but let God's light shine, to shine bright, to reveal the way, to expel the darkness, and to let God's light shine before others, so they can give glory and praise to Him. Lord, the light of your love is shining. In the midst of the darkness, shining. Jesus, light of the world, shine upon us. Set us free from the truth you now bring us. Shine on me. Shine on me.